Well, welcome to Old Classic Car, and in this compilation I'm looking at Armstrong Siddeley cars from the late 1920s through to the beginning of the 1960s. So to begin with, we find ourselves over at Trentham Gardens. The car in question is UEH 443. That is an Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire. This one first put on the road in middle of 1954, June 1954 is the date of that black beauty there. 3.4 litre engine under that bonnet. Now we are down at the NEC Classic Car Show. This is a Typhoon, this blue car. KLK 185 is the registration number of this beauty, dating to 1949. That's a 4-seat fixed head coupe. These were built from about 1946 through to 49. And next up we have one of several period photographs to feature here. This is LFN 410, and this is another example of the Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire. This one apparently is still registered, but shows as untaxed since 1987, so whether it is still around or not, well, that's anyone's guess. Now we are down at Bicester Heritage. KV 5824 is the registration number of this beauty, an Armstrong Siddeley Special with Burlington body, a 5.5 litre engine under the bonnet of that one. Launderette coachwork, and there's a C47 parked in the background. What a great scene that is. Now we are back at the NEC. Quite a few NEC photographs in this particular compilation, and there we have an Armstrong Siddeley Star Sapphire. So this was the slightly revised version of the original Sapphire, slightly different grille, not quite as tall as that on the previous car. Now, thanks to Nev for this photograph. This was taken over in Australia quite some time ago. AS056. That is a Hurricane, a drop head coupe, and what a swish looking motor car that is. I'm guessing that photo probably dates to the 1980s or the early 1990s. Now we are at the Goodwood Revival. This was quite a few years ago, about 2006 I think I took this photo. That's an Irish registration there, a Sapphire 346, and this car will actually be shown again in a new life at Bicester Heritage, but more of that coming up shortly. Now this is a really unusual one. This turned up at a one-off evening car meet that we went to a year or so back. WHW236 is the very appropriate registration number for this Armstrong Siddeley 236, a 6-cylinder car dating to 1956. Armstrong Siddeley itself dates back to 1919. There's a rear view of the same car. Very, very distinctive styling indeed. These were a 6-cylinder car, about 2.3 litres, very similar size actually. Engine to the 4-cylinder 234. Next up in this Armstrong Siddeley collection, we are back at Bicester Heritage, and LKV 706 is a 1952 Armstrong Siddeley Whitley. That had a 2.3 litre engine, looking very smart there, and a gaggle of Aston Martins in the background as well, just for a little added interest in this particular shot. If you're a fan of Armstrong Siddeley, please let me know in the comments. It's always great to read your comments. And there's a rear 3/4 view of the same car parked behind a rather magnificent Daimler Majestic Major, the V8 powered car. Fantastic pair there. And here is that former race car, TZ276. I photographed it back at the Goodwood Revival, and now it is used by a brewery on site at Bicester Heritage here. And yeah, that looks fantastic. I do like the wheels on that as well. They look really, really smart indeed. But yeah, great to see it still around. I didn't realise it was the same car actually. And still at Bicester Heritage with one of the old hangars in the background is PJ 3574. That's a 1932 20 horsepower coach saloon. And yeah, you don't see too many Armstrong Siddeleys around, so whenever I see them, I always try and make sure I have a good look and grab a photo of them. Now we are here at Trentham Gardens, a slightly soggy Trentham Gardens, and here in the foreground is another fantastic example of the Star Sapphire. The Star Sapphire, well, that was introduced in 1958 and produced until 1960 only, so quite a brief production run. And we are back at Bicester. This is quite a well-known car, PEH 874. That is a Lancaster, the Armstrong Siddeley Lancaster. You'll note that many of the post-war cars were named after very famous aircraft, because of course Armstrong Siddeley had links to Hawker Siddeley, etc. in the aviation world. Now, we are, I think, at Capesthorne Hall here. ADB 794 is the registration. That's a 17 horsepower saloon from 1938. Yeah, if you're a fan of Armstrong Siddeley, please pop a note into the comments. It's always great to read your thoughts about these cars. Maybe you owned one of these back in the day or own one now. Now, this is at the Kelsall Steam Rally some years ago now. RNE 312 is the registration. Another Sapphire 346. This one first put on the road in May of 1955. Looking particularly smart there. Usually two-tone paint schemes on these cars as well, which really sets them off a treat. And we are back at Trentham Gardens, a very soggy Trentham Gardens. This particular car, HSF 919, there are two photographs of this car. This is a 1950 Whitley. You can see the four-light bodywork here, two windows either side. Yeah, and quite a nice trio there, lineup of classic Armstrong Siddeleys. And here at the NEC is a rear three-quarter view of the same maroon 1950 Whitley. Now, what a great shot here. Thanks to Peter for this. He took this in New Zealand at the famous Horopito Motors scrapyard, and there is a video all about that elsewhere on the channel. And there we have what looks to be a Whitley with a Triumph Mayflower behind it, and chances are they're probably still there. It's quite a yard by all accounts. Okay, to slightly better condition car now. We have 9442RE. An Armstrong Siddeley Star Sapphire. This one dating to 1960, March of 60. This one was first registered in 1960, was the final year of Armstrong Siddeley car production. So this is a very, very late example of the breed. There's a rear three-quarter view of the same car. Very elegant lines. It must be about the last car to still have removable wheel spats, I would have thought, unless, of course, you know differently. But yeah, very, very traditional styling. Probably a contemporary rival to cars like the Daimler, perhaps. Now, many years ago, 2006 I think it was, I went with friends and we found an old scrapyard in North Wales somewhere, and in a building was this incredibly unusual looking Armstrong Siddeley, which appears someone made a start in making it into a drop side pickup truck. Now, whether this vehicle is still around or not, I don't know. As far as I know, the yard was cleared out just a few years after we visited. But it's certainly a very distinctive vehicle. You'd like to think it'd still be around somewhere, unless maybe it's been rebodied as a special or something like that. But as a truck, I think that looks pretty groovy, to be honest. What do you reckon? Do you agree? Let me know again in the comments, please. Back to slightly more complete vehicles now. We have OLA 469, another Sapphire 346 from 1953. And yeah, like I say, the grille on the original Sapphire like this is much taller than that on the Star Sapphire. Just that's something to keep an eye out for. This one was originally metallic blue all over. Okay, MTE 117 is the next one. This is a magnificent 18 horsepower Armstrong Siddeley Hurricane dating to 1950. It's drop roof, two doors, rear hinge doors as well. What an amazing, very distinctive looking car that is too. Looking somewhat sadder is this particular car, 595 LPB. Another Sapphire here, the Star Sapphire. Like I say, the grille is slightly shorter on these and the bonnet comes right down to the front. That's the main visual difference as far as I can tell. And yeah, it's looking pretty sad. Has it been restored? Who knows? Right, now this I photographed in about 2006 or 2007. This is a 17 horsepower drop head coupe dating to 1936. In fact, this sold in 2024 auction for just £8,500, which looked like a bit of a bargain to me. It looks to be a very nice original car. Now this is a very unusual car. This is a limousine version of the Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire. Slightly longer, rear hinged back doors, that's the main giveaway. This one I believe dates to 1956. I think this was at Tatton Park Classic Car Show quite a few years ago now. And oh, it's another one of these, registered 171APK. I think I photographed this one at one of the Sywell Wings and Wheels events. This is a Sapphire 236, and this one dates to 1956, same year as the limousine that we saw just a moment ago. Continuing this look, thanks to Vince at Armstrong Siddeleys, we have CPJ 404. This is a 17 horsepower sports foursome, no less. So foursome presumably because it's a four-seater. But yeah, quite a handsome looking car. Very distinctive radiator surrounds on these, and of course the Sphinx mascot on the top of the radiator grille. Now we're back to slightly more familiar territory, but in Australia, and another example of the Sapphire 346. Okay, we are back to the Owners Club stand at the NEC Classic Car Show, ROE 777. That is a Star Sapphire, and this one was built in 1960. Like I said before, this was the final year of car production for this once famous car manufacturer, rival to Jaguar, Daimler, and so on. Now, this is a vehicle I know very little about. I think the registration CPF 852, I think it is. Can't quite see the number plates, but it looks like a drop-head coupe. But if you know any more about this intriguing pale green car, please let me know in the comments. This was photographed within the last few years, so maybe it's on the road by now or still mid-restoration, who knows. I'm sure someone watching this will know their Armstrong Sideleys in this particular car, so any updates you can provide, they'll be very gratefully received. Now, this is an event at Kelsall that I went to many years ago. We have NGH 536. This is a London registered Armstrong Siddeley Whitley, and it dates to about August of 1952. Now, the Morton Hampstead Motor Museum, I believe, is in the process of closing if it hasn't already. We visited a couple of years back, and on display there, amongst many, many interesting cars, was this 325 BPH, the registration. I think this was another example of the 236, the six-cylinder car. And very, very good company as well. Another wonderful old photograph here now. This, I think, is an Armstrong Siddeley Hurricane, the drop head, looking very, very swish somewhere en France by the look of it. So midway during a continental road trip by the look of it. Yeah, lots of lovely detail to be seen there. So as with all these old photos, have a look at the backgrounds as well. Okie dokie, and we are back at the NEC again, and we have another Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire 346. Now, isn't this a handsome looking car? This red and grey example is 1936 Atalanta. Now, Atalanta was a car maker in its own right. So which came first, this or the Atalanta motor car? I'm not entirely sure. They were built, I'm sure, within a year or two of each other, but this is a very handsome looking car indeed. Now we are at the North West Museum of Road Transport in St Helens, and we have another Star Sapphire. And to the NEC, to the Armstrong Siddeley Owners Club, and another Sapphire 346 showing off its six-cylinder engine. These were available with single or twin carburetors, 125 or 150 brake horsepower, so certainly quite a punchy car. I bet they went quite well. Now, this is a car I used to see quite regularly at some of the events we get to, but not for a little while. I can't quite make out the full registration number of this beauty. But yeah, if you know any more about this one, please pop a note into the comments. Quite a distinctive body style on this one as well. Is it a drop-head coupe or is it a faux cabriolet? I'm not quite sure. Now, I think this one was down at the Haynes Motor Museum. Clearly in wedding guise, JTF 621B. Now, that's a 1964 registration number, even though the car I think is 1959. So maybe it had been abroad or overseas somewhere, maybe the Isle of Man, before being registered here. Now, this is a bit of an oddball. I'd like to know a bit more about this one, presumably based on a 234 or 236, a cabriolet, a drop-top version. Now, is this a factory offering or is this one that someone's made up themselves? Again, it'd be great to know a bit more about this one because I've never seen anything like it before or since. Lovely pre-war car here now, KMP 700. Great to see the original registration number on this one. This car dates to just pre-World War II, 1939, and it's a 16-horse four-door saloon. We are back to the Kelsall Steam Rally many, many years ago, and we've got NAS 819, another Sapphire. This one is on Sawn at the moment, so declared off-road. It's a 1953 car, and well, presumably it's just tucked away in someone's garage somewhere, awaiting re-registration to come back out again. Now this is fantastic. It must be unique. This is a van. It's been built up around a 1926 18 horsepower car, but at some point in its life, and it's near 100 years, it's been converted into a van. This was a fate that befell many cars, actually pre and just post-war. We are back to shiny cars at the NEC, and we have 944 FCD. This is a 1953 Whitley. Very nice tune again. The four-light coachwork of the Whitley Saloon in evidence there. Now I'm at the British Motor Museum. I photographed this one at Gaydon just a few years ago. PVC 474, an Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire 346 from 1955. And again, in the two-tone paint scheme, VC is a Coventry area registration, I believe. Now we are at the NEC again. Now this is another wonderful example of the Armstrong Siddeley Hurricane, the 16 horsepower, 2 litre, 6-cylinder Armstrong Hurricane. Very nice. FOU 653, and what a Bobby Dazzler that one is. Back to the old photograph archives, and there is a huge section on the main old classic car website. There's a huge image archive of photographs, including quite a few Armstrong Siddeleys that didn't make it into this particular compilation, so please check out the main OCC website when you've finished here. That's a great old photograph here. Right, we have photos now of a much dismantled pre-war Armstrong Siddeley. This one dates to 1937, shown here mid-restoration. It's a special sports saloon, and there's a 5 litre 6-cylinder engine there on display, and we'll get a closer look at that one in just a few seconds, all being well. Yep, there we go. What a beautiful looking engine there. All those wonderful castings are polished up a treat. This was a few years ago at one of the NEC events, and coming up is a photograph of the completed car, registered DXL 261. There it is. What a handsome son of a gun that is. Please let me know in the comments which would be your take-home car of all featured in this particular upload, but this would definitely be on my shortlist. That's a very handsome looking car indeed. Bonnet raised now on another example of the 346 Sapphire, definitely the most commonly seen example, the model I suppose that you most often see from Armstrong Siddeley's back catalogue. But yeah, very nice too, this one. DSJ 422, it dates to 1956. Another huge project here. I think this again was on the club stand just a year or two ago. This is a 1936 Armstrong Siddeley 2025 Landaulet. Registration ASR 17. Bit of work in progress there. Wonder if it's finished yet. This was 2 or 3 years ago, I think I took that photo. And also at the NEC, a lineup of Armstrong Siddeleys with a star Sapphire in the foreground, jacked up, ready for a bit of work. Registration PUD 920. Bit more work in progress here. I think this is probably at one of the Practical Classics restoration shows held at the NEC every year. I've done uploads of the last few years' events at the NEC, so please check them out if you haven't already seen them. But yeah, maybe this one's been finished now. Is this car fully restored yet, or is it still a bit of a work in progress? And to finish off, just a close-up of the wonderful Sphinx mascot on top of a Sapphire 346 radiator grille. And that ends this compilation, specifically looking at the wonderful cars of Armstrong Siddeley. Thank you so much for watching this particular one. Please check out the rest of the channel. There's over 600 videos about classic cars on here now, so there should be something for most tastes. And thank you so much for watching. Please give it a like, maybe think about subscribing if you'd like to keep an eye out for future uploads here on the Old Classic Car channel, and there'll be many more videos along very soon. So bye for now.